And since you registered, you will receive a copy of the recording. And so we'll go ahead and get started, and we'll welcome others as they come. I'm Margaret Benefiel, and I have the privilege of serving as the executive director of Shalem, and I'm one of the co-editors of this book, Soul Food, which we did in honor of Shalem's 50th anniversary. Westina Matthews is the lead editor, and she did a great job envisioning this and pulling it together. And so thank you so much, Westina, for all your great work on this. The book is, as you know, I think many of you, reflective of our commitment at Shalem to diversity, equity, and inclusion. We wanted to get a diverse set of voices in this book, and we wanted to look at contemplative spirituality from fresh angles. So we have many wonderful contributors here tonight, and they will speak about their essays in the book. We received a grant from Trinity Church Wall Street that allows us to give some honoraria and to buy some books for people, and so we're very grateful for that, as well as many other things that are part of our DEI plan. So we thank Trinity Church Wall Street. All royalties from this book will go to Shalem. And the book is dedicated to Tilden Edwards, Shalem's founder and senior fellow, who founded Shalem 50 years ago. So thank you again, Westina. Thanks to all the contributors who are here. Thanks to everyone else who came tonight. And I also want to thank Ardea Stewart, who is the publisher, who believed in this book from the beginning and encouraged us along. And so, Ardea, I'd like to turn it over to you now with great gratitude.
Thank you so much. And I'm so pleased to welcome you all to this important event about this very exciting book. When I first heard about this project, commemorating the 50th anniversary of the Shalem Institute, a collection of essays offering modern contemplative reflections from new and renowned voices in spiritual leadership seemed potentially groundbreaking. But what emerged from the careful curation by the book's editors and the unique contributions by a wonderfully diverse pool of contributors has exceeded even those expectations. Richard Rohr called Soul Food an illuminating addition to any spiritual library. Andrew McGowan referred to it as a feast, varied, rich, and engaging, some of it stimulating, some of it soothing, all providing much needed nourishment. Other endorsers have praised the many rich perspectives who compassionately address the ailments of society and promise that these essays will make you pray, think, see, act, and live differently. Church Publishing is so proud to have published this important work, and we're so grateful to the editors, contributors, and Shalem for providing this essential resource for spiritual leadership. Welcome to an exciting evening.
Thank you, Ardea. And now I'd like to introduce Jackson Droney, another co-editor of the book and Shalem's Director of Operations and Online Learning, and much more. Jackson, over to you.
Thank you, Margaret. It's good to be here with all of you. As Margaret mentioned, as we were thinking about Shalem's 50th anniversary and what was ahead for Shalem, we began a discernment process for what we now call Vision 2025, a strategic and plan and visioning direction for the organization. And out of that came guiding principles, 5 different focus areas, as well as a vision statement to guide us over this period of time. And we see this book as embodying a key element of our vision. One of our 5 focus areas is about belonging. And one of the things we noticed with Stina, Margaret, and I was the lack of resources for contemplative living and leadership that addressed a lot of the contemporary issues that are top of mind today. And that as Shalem looks to its next chapter, isn't it important for us to develop resources, curate contemplative voices for those variety of issues that come up? And so I am just so grateful to all the contributors who wrote, all the people who participated in our process to put this together to both be a touchstone now, but something that will also carry us long into the future, we hope. So thank you again.
Thank you, Jackson. And now I'd like to introduce Westina Matthews, who is a Shalem board member and the lead editor on this book. And also Westina led the Trinity Church Wall Street grant proposal effort and was the person who was most instrumental in getting that grant. And she and Faye Acker work on the Shalem Contemplatives of Color, supporting and nurturing that network of people. So Westina, thank you so much for all that you've been doing, and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And this was a vision of the program committee for Shalem that started 2 years ago, and the board blessed it and was so supportive. So it couldn't have happened without all of everyone's support. I have the privilege of introducing the individual who wrote the foreword to the book, Valerie Brown. And Valerie said yes right away, which I knew then this was going to be a very special book. For those of you who don't know, Valerie is a Buddhist Quaker Dharma teacher and the best-selling author. And her latest book is Hope Leans Forward, Braving Your Way Towards Simplicity, Awakening, and Peace. So, Valerie, thank you.
Hey, thank you, Westina. It is a great honor and a great privilege to be here with you and among friends. And this book, the birthing of this book, is clearly a living legacy of Shalem's first 50 years and into the next 50 years. And I am so deeply touched by not only the diversity of voices, but the book's living encounter with spirit that is so attentive in each page of this book. This is a book that speaks justice, it speaks about peace, and it speaks deeply about love, and the love that is calling us toward beloved community, which is Shalem. So thank you so much. Thank all the contributors and everyone who had a hand in creating this legacy of Shalem. Back to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, now you get to meet all of the contributors. Well, not all of them. 3 of them could not join us. One is out of the country, and others had other things that will hold them in prayer, but they are with us in spirit. And for me, it's very exciting because most of what we've done has been through emails. So to see the faces now come alive is just amazing and so rewarding. I'll remind you the process. We send out an all-call, Margaret, Jackson, and I, of anyone of our Shalem family, to say we want to do this book, and we will have experiential, and we'll have academic essays. We then had a Zoom informational session, and then 60 submissions. And the hard part for us was to read those and prayerfully discern which ones would be included. If we'd had our way, everyone would have been included. And so we're just thrilled that we were able, though, to work and select 17. And thank you, you 17 right now, for being so faithful and attentive and answering all my emails and all the edits and all the questions, and you've been amazing. So I've asked each contributor to speak a maximum of 2 minutes. Now, this is going to be very hard for them to do because they can talk and they can write. But I'm going to ask them to share their relationship with Shalem, and then the title of their essay, and just 1 or 2 sentences to let us know what it's about, to entice you to read and purchase and read this book. The book is divided into 2 sections. The first part is called Welcoming and Belonging. And so the first person I'll call on who's with us is Sarah Forte. Sarah?
Thank you, Westina. So my name is Sarah. I'm one of the directors of Shalem's Crossing the Threshold, which is the contemplative leadership program for adults aged 25 to 40. And I also teach in Shalem's group spiritual direction workshops. My chapter, entitled Listening for the Holy, explores how the grounding presence of contemplative practices can turn the seemingly simple act of listening into a revelatory journey of love towards self, toward the other, towards God. And one of the personal stories that I share in the chapter is how losing my own hearing has been a major part of my ongoing journey of learning to listen as an act of love.
Thank you. So next we have Gay, who is with us, Gay Byron. So Gay?
Thank you, Westina. I am so delighted, and thanks to all of you all for coming out this evening. I'm so delighted to be a part of this event. I teach New Testament courses at Howard University School of Divinity, and my essay in the volume is a reflection on how my 2 worlds as a professor and a pastor came together as a result of my involvement in Shalem's program, Going Deeper, Clergy, Spiritual Life, and Leadership. My essay is titled Contemplative Collegiality, Caring for the Souls of Black Biblical Scholars. And what I do in this essay is come up with this phrase, contemplative collegiality. And it's through this contemplative collegiality, which I practice among my colleagues in biblical studies and my colleagues associated with Shalem, that I learned how to bring my 2 worlds together. The driving question that frames my essay is, why are my spiritual and self-care practices cut off from my scholarly life? So I want to offer a personal word of thanks to Reverend Faye Acker, who encouraged me to join the Shalem program, and of course, Winston, Charles, and Margaret Benefield for their commitment to contemplative collegiality. Thank you.
Thank you. So next, joining Jesse Smith is next on our list.
Thanks, Westina. My essay is looking at the prior to the colon is, you always have to have a colon, from censorship to contemplation. And it discusses the realities of being a queer person who's in a culture that is right now having serious discussions both in the church and in public life regarding LGBTQ persons. And so, I reflect in the piece about this interesting connection between the silence that forms many of us who are LGBTQ and the silence that we find in contemplation, and how those 2 relate to one another. I'm deeply honored to be part of this collection and so grateful to Westina. She has been incredibly patient with me, and I'm really, really grateful. So yeah, that's my piece.
Hey. I'll invite now Amanda Underwood to join us.
Thank you. My name's Amanda, and I was first formally introduced to Shalem at the Contemporary Voices Awards honoring Carrie Newcomer, and got the opportunity to go out to dinner with her and sort of have that observational look into Shalem and in a less formal space. The title of my chapter is called Tell Me About Mary's Rage, and in the spirit of authenticity, it is a chapter that explores an important theological belief of mine, which is that to present the conception story of Jesus as a consensual conception is an act of both religious violence, but also racial violence, and also just quite an unimaginative telling of what Mary might offer us theologically over time in the course of her life. And I really pair that with an important piece of art in my life written by Alice Walker, The Color Purple. And Alice Walker is one of the important mothers of womanism, which has also really deeply shaped my contemplative and faith practices. And so I'll just sort of conclude by saying the question that interests me is, how are we answering this question of whether God is violent, and what is connected to how we answer that question in our relationships with church and each other?
Thank you. So that was part one, welcoming and belonging. And one we'll come back to. She was having sound issues, so I will come out of sequence. But the second part of the book is entitled Holy Awe.
Yeah.
The very first one is me. I had an essay in there entitled 1,000 Paths to Contemplation, and what it means to be an African American, person of color, contemplative. And I am raised as an AME, and so we were told to be still and know that I am God. It didn't say to be silent. So I write about that experience of being a contemplative as an African American. So I will now invite Philip Stevens, who has contributed in this section.
Thank you, Estina, and good evening, everyone. I am the program director for Shalem's Spiritual Guidance Program. And during the pandemic, I was in one of those famous Zoom meetings where, you know, they break you into breakout rooms, and we were in pairs. And we had 15 minutes to introduce ourselves to one another and tell, you know, our quote life story. And so I ended up going first within that encounter and shared, you know, my position as director of the guidance program. And the other person in the pair immediately asked me, quite bluntly, what does spiritual guidance have to do with social justice?
Mm.
And I had never had that question put to me quite that way, so succinctly. And I took a breath, and what came out of my mouth, well, everything, because spiritual guidance has the power to change the world. And I was surprised by that answer. And in that, worded quite that way. And so that invited me into a significant period of prayer and reflection around what that really means for me and for those whom I serve as a spiritual guide. So when the invitation came to write an essay, that's what came up for me. I said, okay, this is going to be part of my prayer process. So that's what I did, and unpacked that more, my first statement more, so that when I'm confronted with that question again, I can hopefully speak a bit more eloquently about that. And in the context of the essay, I lift up an example from my own practice as a spiritual guide, working with someone who is very, very active and committed to social justice, and how our relationship with one another and with God has impacted her journey. Thank you.
Thank you. Leah Rampy.
Thank you, Westina. And just want to say what a blessing it is to be here with all of these wonderful faces and hearts in this square of really a circle. So I'm a Shalem grad. I've served on the board. I served as executive director from 2009 to 2015. Have led a number of pilgrimages, seminars, and participated in a number of classes at Shalem. So it's been such a gift and an inspiration to me. The essay that I wrote is Coming to Our Senses, embracing wonder and gratitude. We live in quite difficult times. This is not an easy, shape-shifting world in which we are coming to terms with eco-grief and loss. And we've lost many of the connections that we once had to knowing and understanding our kin in the greater world. This is an invitation to open our senses, to be fully present, aware, deeply connected. And when we can move into that open-hearted stance, we can find that we are embraced by beauty, awe, wonder. With our hearts broken open, embracing such amazing gifts can leave us deeply grateful and profoundly connected to the sacred that is within and all around us in this amazing, holy world. So that's the essence of my essay. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm now going to call upon Larita Coleman Brown.
Good evening, everyone. I greet you from the mountains of North Carolina, where I have an opportunity to bask in the stillness of nature. I am a graduate of the spiritual guidance program at Shalem, as well as provide seminars for that program. I also lead 2 online retreats on Howard Thurman. And the title of my essay was Embodying Contemplative Leadership, Howard Thurman and the Timeless Hunger, Howard Thurman, the Feeding of the Timeless Hunger of the Human Spirit. And I guess the question that I posed was, how do you know when you're in the presence of a contemplative or a contemplative leader? Are there certain attributes that they embody? Are there certain kinds of characteristics that they exude? And so I chose to focus on the life and writings of Howard Thurman as an exemplar prototype of contemplative leadership. I think that there are some people like him who are born contemplatives and are naturally drawn to those places, spaces, and people who exude the presence of God. And I believe that there certainly are some attributes such as living as a holy child of God, seeking the presence of God, cultivating a curious scrutiny about institutions and aspects of culture and society, models of prophetic spirituality, and walks with inner authority. So that sort of sums up what I discuss in my essay. Thank you.
Thank you. A.Y. Bryant. Are you there?
I am here, unmuting myself. That was just such a rookie move, but I think it just really speaks to my excitement about being at this moment in time and history with Shalem. My name is A.Y. Bryant, and I am zooming in from Durham, North Carolina. With Shalem, I am currently one of the co-directors for the Heart Longings program, one of the long-term programs, and one of Philip's current associates in the spiritual guidance program. I'm in the current cohort, and a graduate of the group spiritual direction program and the Soul of Leadership program. And the title of my essay is Considerations of Recovery, Centering Prayer, and Social Justice Action. So just a little, this essay has it actually started out as a keynote presentation in 2015, and now it's seated wonderfully in this book. But I have a background in higher education, particularly equity, advocacy, and mental health, with what I would describe in higher education, Thurman's disinherited. So I've done that work for quite some time. And the essay really evolved out of a reflection paper that I had to do for my Soul of Leadership cohort. It was at a moment in time in our country where there was another act of violence against the African American community and African American individuals that was very public. And really, I would say that it was a grief reaction in the midst of Soul of Leadership, where I began to think about issues of oppression and liberation and contemplation very, very differently than I had done in my home and higher education. At the same time, I was a member of a reading group of what I'm going to call older adults. I typically work with folks 18 to 30. And this group was older. It was a church group that was doing a collective book reading. And the perennial question came up from participants that would identify themselves as privileged and empowered. Well, what do I do? What is my contribution? How can I make a difference? And I really wanted to think and reflect and write authentically about issues of racism and oppression as a recovery process. There's not one thing that folks can do that will end it, but what are the tools, if you will, in our contemplative values, in our contemplative toolbox that will allow us to acknowledge our role and simultaneously make a difference through a lens of social justice. And so that's the focus of my essay.
Thank you. So I'm going to back up and include now someone who's joined us from South Africa. So it is 12:30 for her and not in the afternoon. She was having trouble with her sound. But let me introduce Althea. And because she corrected me on her pronunciation of her last name, I'll let her give her full name the way that should be properly stated.
Thank you so much, Westina. Yes, I'm Althea Banda Hansman. and really appreciating the opportunity to contribute to this publication at Shalem's 50th anniversary. So my history with Shalem actually goes back to 1993, and I'm literally holding up, if I put it close, I'm holding up this threefold pamphlet about group spiritual direction. And so fast forward, I think this is 30 years, right? Today, fast forward to today, my relationship with Shalem deepened over the last 3 years. What brought me back was my disillusionment and heartbrokenness at spiritual direction training here in South Africa. But I came back at the time of COVID, and where the world was being with the soreness of oppression, racial prejudice and discrimination that was so evident during COVID. I've participated in the Contemplative conversation about race online retreats. I've done group spiritual direction training, and I'm a graduate of the Soul of Leadership program, and now facilitate a small group in discernment practice and part of Shalem's BIPOC community. My chapter is really against the background of being trained during 2018 to 2020 in a spiritual direction curriculum, not led by Shalem, but a spiritual direction curriculum that was white-centric in a country that is 90% Black. In South Africa, Black means BIPOC, and delinked from any understanding or compassionate holding of the impact of trauma. And so this topic resonates with what many of the other writers spoke about. And so in this chapter titled Toward Decolonizing Spiritual Direction, weeping, which I had a lot of weeping during my training, I had a lot of gnashing my teeth, but also in that pain, opening to the ancient new. And so this chapter is an invitation, and it's a call in this time for a new generation of spiritual direction educators and companions that will courageously model listening both to the personal and the systemic themes that are in the narratives of people who come to spiritual direction. It's a call to have the courage to care enough about integrating trauma-sensitive approaches and socially conscious perspectives as we listen to the movement of God in others. And so when you read chapter 4, I invite us all to pause and look at the 4 spheres of healing from oppression model that I've put forward for spiritual directors. Perhaps notice which decolonizing practices you've already integrated in your leadership, in your personal, your spiritual direction process. And notice which of the practices in each of the spheres, perhaps even one, that you'd like to practice and include in your journey forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Marcel Martin.
It's a privilege to be here. I'm a graduate of the Shalem Spiritual Guidance Program 25 years ago. And that program was so important and helpful to me that I've been sharing with others what I learned from that program for the last 25 years. And so when I got the invitation to write a piece for this anthology, I really did it because I wanted to give back to Shalem a little bit of the enormous treasures that they gave me. My piece is called What Your Tender Heart Knows, and it's about ways to help people pay attention to that spiritual perception that comes from the heart center, distinguishing that from the head knowledge, which we access much more easily, most of us, in Western culture. And I speak about the use of evoking questions, that is, questions that invite people to pay attention to those subtle spiritual perceptions that come through the heart center. And I shared my favorite evoking questions that I've used over and over again in my workshops, and particularly my very favorite, which is, what does your tender heart know right now? Which, when you use it as a repeating question, that is, a question gets repeated maybe for 4 minutes with a gentle contemplative rhythm, the heart reveals more and more progressively to the listener who's asking the question. So thank you so much, Shalem. You really gave me so much.
Thank you. Elaine Bochi, I'm saying it correctly, I hope this time.
It was perfect. Thank you. Good evening. I'm a semi-retired life coach, a writer, and like all of you, a pilgrim on a spiritual journey. My first Shalem encounter was a beautiful program titled Heart's Longing. And I'm currently enrolled in the Soul of Leadership class, the Zoom cohort. My essay is a contemplative view of resilient aging. And it is a response to ageist assumptions about growing old. Successful aging, I contend, is not an oxymoron. Awe and wonder don't have a timestamp. If we take a look around, we are living in a country being transformed by its growing number of elders with their enduring vitality and the disruptive power to shape markets and influence change in society at all levels, the economy, culture, the politics. Among those in the second half of life are contemplative elders, whose resiliency derives from daily devotion to spiritual practices that ground them, such as centering prayer and joyful generativity. My chapter explores 5 qualities that contemplative elders share. I end my essay with a call for contemplative elders to be unapologetic change agents. There are no passengers, after all, on this spaceship Earth. We are all crew members. We must feed the collective field of collective consciousness with love, kindness, and courage if we are to avoid global disaster and make the next evolutionary step to a brighter future for all of us, for everyone. This is our choice, our destiny, and what this moment in time demands of us. Thank you.
Thank you. And Dana Lee Simon, I said Dana, and she said, that's not how I say it. So did I get it right?
You got it right, Westina. And my mom would be so proud. Thank you so much. My essay, The Summer Day of the Owls, first existed in part as my annual Advent letter to family and friends. This was back in 2014, over a year before I entered the spiritual guidance program at Shalem. And so the invitation to submit an essay to be included in this book gave me a chance to reflect on how this story and experience, this Summer Day of the Owls, continued to unfold in my life. Beyond sharing a beautiful experience that I was gifted while in nature, this essay highlights just a smattering of the many pieces of learning and wisdom that I've received as part of Shalem's learning community. It expresses a kind of before and after picture of the gifts that have shown up in my life through being steeped in contemplative spirituality. And I hope it serves to invite others to pay even more attention as they all venture out into nature, so that they may continue to receive the full array of her gifts through both ordinary and extraordinary ways. I want to say too, it is just such a joy for me to get to be a part of this book, which really feels like an offering along with all these other authors. I want to thank you, Westina and Margaret and Jackson, especially for all of the work that you've done on our behalf. It is such a privilege to have been a part of Shalem's first 50 years, a truly life-transforming connection for me. And it is an honor also to be a part of this book that will contribute to the vision that has been cast around what Shalem will continue to be in the next 50. Thank you so much.
You. So I want to remind everyone that this is being recorded. We had 196 people register. All right. And so if you registered, you will receive a link of the recording. I want to remind you of that. Please spread the word about the book. If you know places where there can be book reviews or book clubs or things, we really would like to spread the story, the good news of this book. And a special thanks to Trinity Church Wall Street again for their gracious support. This is part of a larger grant that they've made to us to support our diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. And we are very much indebted to them.
Excuse me, this is Kolya. Did you want to call on me?
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Yeah, let me just finish this and then I'll come to you. Koya, how'd I skip you? I'm so sorry. Thank you. And let me know if I skipped anybody else or somebody showed up. Thank you so much.
Westina, you skipped me too. It's Melanie.
Oh, my goodness. All right. Well, I'm going to just stop and go back to Koya and Melanie. I have this all typed up. I just can't believe I messed up. I'm human. Give me grace. Give me grace. Okay, Koya, and then we'll go to Melanie. And if I skip somebody else, let me know. Koya.
Absolutely. Grace abounds. My experiences of Shalem have been broad and deep, from sessions on forms of prayer during a season of Lent to a class on spirituality about St. Francis and his spirituality, and an Advent series using Visio Divina, contemplating the paintings by Giotto. Also Gerald May lectures featuring John Philip Newell, Elia Delio, and Cynthia Bourgeot, all of which have enriched my spiritual life tremendously. My essay, Embodied Contemplation of Deep Time, Resourcing Spiritual Resilience, is an invitation to immerse ourselves in the deep time story of evolution, a story which unites all life on this planet. As our Indigenous brothers and sisters say, honoring all our relations. This evolutionary story of God's creation has fascinated me since the 5th grade when I wrote my first research paper of 2 pages on trilobites, the ancestor being who had the first eyes. My essay describes a way of seeing with new eyes from the wisdom of teachings of mystics and a meditation walk through which we can physically contemplate the 14 billion year expanse of this deep time story, along with witnessing the exquisite beauty of interdependent life emerging through the incarnation of creation. I share the process of this cosmic spiral walk along with the insights of participants, both youth and adults, with whom I have shared this contemplative practice in many contexts. Contemplating this deep time story can help us navigate the challenging and uncertain future ahead of us. Knowing that there is a spirit of life ever present and has been, always changing, creating, and evolving. And as I like to say, life wants to keep on lifing. And contemplating this deep time story can inspire us to be instruments of God's abundant creation to nourish the conditions for the continuance of all life. Thank you so much. I am honored to be part of this collection of creative contemplatives.
Thank you. And Melanie, please be patient with me. God is not through with me yet. So
Thank you, Westina. This was such a beautiful opportunity to live into what I've learned at Shalem, to let go of whatever's happening, to discern, should I say something or not? And to always be in a space of knowing you're doing your absolute best and juggling a lot. And so to offer grace. So I'm grateful for Shalem because it taught me to live in this way. And I was in the 2018 class of spiritual guidance. My name is Melanie Dobson. In that program, Patient Robbins, who I'm thrilled to see is on, taught me the practice of group spiritual direction. And my essay begins with my first experience of group spiritual direction on that sun-dappled deck at Bon Secours in the retreat center. And the way in which I felt a belonging that I'd been so longing for. So my essay is called To Heal What Ails Us, Group Spiritual Direction as a Practice of Belonging. And it was a time in my life when I was feeling a lot of loneliness while I was in the midst of a really big vocational discernment. I was trying to decide whether to leave a parish. I am a United Methodist pastor. I was pastoring a church. And in group spiritual direction, I felt held and heard in a way that led to healing and wholeness and clarity. And I fell in love with this practice. And I decided to leave the church and become a professor, actually, at Lutheran Theological Southern Seminary. In my essay, I talk about loneliness is a result of a culture, an epidemic of depression, anxiety, loneliness. And I indicate that really the origins of that are the force of whiteness that we can see in its forms of brutal capitalism. It compels all of us to work all the time so that we don't have space for relationships or renewal or spiritual practice. So group spiritual direction can be the antidote. And I offer it's a practice that can heal what ails us, a practice that provides loving community like this one, a loving community of connection that can hear us to wholeness. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So that I would like to make sure that I tell you this too. Put some stars on Amazon because that's how the books get sold. So do that, but remember you can order from Church Publishing and get that discount, that 20% discount. Spread the word. Let me just close with it just appeared in Presence magazine from Spiritual Directors International, their review of the book, and the closing sentence, I think, kind of sums it up, and then I'm going to turn this back to Margaret. And I quote, "Soul Food is a courageous, liberatory anthology with essential reading for spiritual direction formation and training programs, and for the ongoing personal and professional growth of spiritual companions." Yes. Margaret, I turn this over to you.
Thank you, Westina, and thank you, everyone. You can see what a rich array of essays we have in this book. So thank you, everyone, for all your good work in contributing to this. So in a moment, I'm going to introduce Susan Etherton, but first I'll tell you that I'm going to take a few screenshots. Westina asked for a few screenshots. And if sometimes these screenshots find their way into publicity for the book or Shalem publicity or Shalem Facebook page or maybe Westina's Facebook page or mine, if you don't want it to appear in one or more of those places, tell Westina and she will be sure that it doesn't appear in whatever places you don't want it to appear. So now I would like to introduce Susan Etherton, who is the president of the Shalem board, who is also the head of the 50th anniversary video project and active on the 50th anniversary committee and doing many other things to support Shalem's 50th anniversary and Shalem in general. And so, Susan.
Thank you, Margaret. Susan Etherton here. All Shalem all the time. That's my motto. And what a wonderful hour to spend with 97, 101 new friends, some existing and some new friends. And how excited I am to really dive in to my copy of the book with the highlighter and the pen. And so thank you for all those tempting bites of invitation. And I'm thrilled that we have this. And so I've been invited to say thank you. And I love that we've been saying thank you through this whole hour, haven't we? Everyone has been naming that. And I'm reminded that our dear spiritual Elder Meister Eckhart does say that if the only prayer you ever offer is thank you, that is enough. And so thank you. Many, many thank yous. The first one I want to name is Westina, and she has been thanked, and we will thank her again, and we will give her a deep bow for her relentless pursuit of making this dream come true. So thank you, Westina, for all of the work, not only for the book and the work she's done with Artie Stewart, but also with the Trinity Wall Street folks and getting us the grant. It's maybe Westina is all Shalem all the time too, but I don't know that she would claim that or want to say that. But for this year, she has been extraordinary, and we are appreciative. And so a deep bow of thanks to Westina, and to, of course, our other editors, Jackson and Margaret, and their work on this. There were over, as it has been said, over 60 essays that were submitted. And so really thank you to everyone who cared enough to write something about their experience of Shalem and how it has impacted them. Would that I could include all of those in the 50th anniversary video that we're working on right now. It would be a delight. And you know how videos can only be a certain length. So when we end up doing our epic, we'll add those in. And the 17 who were able to, who were invited and included in this. Everyone was included in spirit, but in the actual writing. And so lovely that we have you here. And so thank you for presenting your essays. And thank you for those who contributed to the editing and all of the work that went into it. We do want to shout out a special thank you to Church Publishing for their support, and also a special thank you, as Margaret has mentioned, to Trinity Church Wall Street for their grant. Really want to give Trinity a special shout out for the support of Shalem in this 50th anniversary of our diversity, equity, and inclusion work, our belonging work, and for the ability to do this book and this book launch. So everybody give yourself a hand. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It was a wonderful to hear from everybody. And so I'm also have been asked to remind you of an upcoming event from two additional significant authors. Our Contemplative Voices Award will be on Zoom this year on November 19th. The Shalem's CVA, Contemplative Voices Award, honors individuals who've made significant contributions to contemplative understanding, living, and leadership, and whose witness helps others live from the divine wellspring of compassion, strength, and authentic vision. We are pleased to award the 2023 Contemplative Voices Award to two authors and esteemed contemplatives, Cole Arthur Riley and James Finley. They will, in this event, share their stories of their own contemplative journeys. Cole Arthur Riley, many of you know, is a writer and a poet. She's the author of the New York Times bestseller, This Here Flesh. I commend that book to you. It's exceptional. Her writing has been featured in The Atlantic and Guernica, The Washington Post. She's also the creator and writer of Black Liturgies. and encourage you to follow that on Instagram and Facebook. It's powerful, powerful words from Cole. And Black Liturgies is a project that integrates spiritual practice and with Black emotion, Black literature, and the Black body. A student of Thomas Merton and clinical psychologist James Finley, Dr. James Finley, teaches how connecting to our divine indwelling can transcend fear and shame and awaken to our true self. A faculty member at the Center for Action and Contemplation, he is the author of Merton's Palace of Nowhere and the Healing Path, and the host of CAC's podcast, Turning to the Mystics. So you can register for the Contemplative Voices Award on our website. It is just ding ding. It is a way that we also fundraise for Shalem. And in this 50th year, we would love to have a great turnout for those two lovely sort of bookending wisdom elders, youth and elders in this event. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And to conclude our evening tonight, I would like to introduce Winston Charles. Winston Charles is the former program director of Shalem's clergy program and has many other hats that he has worn in his life with Shalem. And I'll let him say more about that, and Winston will offer our closing meditation. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. And thank each one of you. I just feel so grateful for everybody who has shared about their offering in this book. How rich that is. So it's my privilege to sort of call us into sacred silence as we conclude our time together. And I'm going to read a poem. I'm going to say a few words about that poem in just a moment. But after the reading of that poem, I'll invite the bell to ring, and for 2 minutes of sacred silence together. And during that time, perhaps you might want to just receive even more deeply what has been offered to us during the time, to allow that to sink into our hearts, and then to take that into the world, into the cosmos, to breathe it out through our mind and our heart and our bodies, that the presence of the Holy One might transform us and all. This poem rose up as a part of the meeting of the 50th anniversary committee, and it sort of was a partnership in giving birth to this poem, beginning with Anita Davidson's, the chair of this committee, quoting that beautiful line from the Book of Wisdom. Wisdom led them by a marvelous road. She herself was their shelter by day and their starlight through the night. So I offer this in gratitude and in humility. Led by starlight down a marvelous road, giving thanks for the 50 years of Shalem and praying for her future. The tree stands tall and broad beside the stream of living water, abundant with fruit of all kinds, peaches and pears, nuts and nests, where birds learn to sing and fly. So many walk by without seeing, so beyond wondrous it is, too preposterous to be perceived by mind's eye alone. Perception requires the mind as it thinks, the heart as it feels, the body as it senses holy communion with the great love that blossoms here. Tunnel vision breaks open into spacious wonder as choirs of witnesses chant this deep reality residing at the heart of all. Wisdom leads them by a marvelous road, sheltering them by day, guiding them by starlight through the night, faithfully holding them as they learn to fly, journeying with ongoing hope, abiding in the great love, drinking deeply of the life-giving water, sharing with others. The great reveal unfolds into fullness of life and love. Two minutes of sacred silence together.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Blessings.
Thank you all.
Thank you and blessings.
Thank you.
Yep. God's blessings to you all.
Thank you, Bob.
Okay.
Thank you, Susan and Margaret and Jackson. We did it. Thank you.
Thank you, Westina.
Yeah, great job, Westina. Great job.
Great. I couldn't believe I forgot those two people, but I'm glad they spoke up. And Jackson sent a chat. I think when I moved Althea, it confused me on my list.
Yeah,
I
sure.
think that's what happened. But anyway, I thought it was a great turnout. So thank you.
I'm going to stop.
Margaret, you want to stop the recording? Or whoever's recording.